All righty, good people. It's 5 after, so we're gonna go ahead and try to get started. I know people will probably drop in. Unfortunately, we had a little glitch with the website this week, and we had a earlier email communication seemed to not go out, but we did send out notifications on yesterday and today. Um, let's see what we got here. Did anyone get a chance to see the work session today? The public sector work session? The council here today. We had a decent work session. That's going to be a continuation on that on February 18th at 1 p.m. They're going to invite the Fulton County, the newly elected Fulton County Sheriff, the DA, newly elected DA, and the Solicitor General. Just for those who just might want to have a little extra inside information. Take you one more minute.
And who's going to be hosting that event?
That'll be public safety. So it's a public safety work session.
Okay.
They had one today at 1 p.m. It was fairly pretty good.
What time is that going to be tomorrow? I mean, on the 14th.
On the 18th?
14th?
The 18th.
Say pardon me?
February the 18th.
18th, okay. At what time?
1 p.m.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So I want to go ahead and get us started. Just clean up there. I want to welcome you guys to the February 4th APAB Public Safety Meeting. I am Chris Brown, the chairperson. Can y'all see the screen here?
Yes.
APAB, yeah, we typically meet every second Thursday. Because we're newly forming and we hadn't traditionally had a big capacity. Our goal here is to help do better engagement. So we've been doing almost like every week as we build capacity. The Atlanta Planning Advisory Board Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee recommends on matters regarding public safety, generally the Department of Police Services, Department of Fire, Department of Corrections, Department of Law, Office of Emergency Management Services, and city courts license issued under the police power of the city, and all matters pertaining to findings of discrimination under human relations ordinances and all other matters pertaining to drafting, implementation, and supervision of all penal ordinances. I just wanted to welcome everybody here. We had a great meeting last week, and we had Councilman Brown that was on helping lead us in some newly enacted resolution that was passed through 3 committees. He gave an overview of that legislation, and as we promised, we would discuss that legislation today. I don't know if many of you are familiar with it or had a chance to review it, who was here last week. But if you look in the chat, there's also a link to that to that piece of legislation for your review and for your records. I want to start by introducing everybody. If everybody can have a small group here today, but if we can go around and everybody introduce themselves and what NPU or organization they're part of before we get started. Let me start with Mr. Law.
Yeah, hi, good evening. I am the Public Safety Chair for NPUW. I formerly chaired APAB Public Safety many moons ago, and also formerly chaired APAB many moons ago.
Your expertise is always welcome, man. We appreciate you coming back to participate with us as we build capacity. Mr. Fletcher.
Hey, my name is Maceo Fletcher, and formerly with NPUV, formerly with the APAB. Public safety is my interest. I was on the Citizens Review Board for 6 years in behalf of citizens' rights, and I believe in accountability for everyone.
Ms. Hawk.
Hi, my name's Laura Hawk. I reside in Mesley Park, and I'm the APAB delegate for NPUK.
Welcome, welcome. Got House of Ramirez.
Oh, hey guys. Hey, everyone. So I am an East Atlanta Village resident, as well as part of a member of East Atlanta Business Association. I just this past week, I've been appointed part of the marketing team for East Atlanta Biz. I'm also a sponsor for West End Neighborhood Development, and I was recently this week appointed part of the committee for historic preservation.
So what's your name again?
Leslie Ramirez.
Leslie. Welcome, Leslie. Ms.
Thank you.
Wallace. Ms. Wallace, how you doing? You're on mute. You have to unmute yourself, Ms. Wallace.
These guys should be volunteering. Okay, I'm unmuted.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm Juanita Wallace, and I am the Public Safety Chair of the English Avenue Neighborhood Association, and also a member of the Parker Creek Stewardship Council.
Welcome, Ms. Wallace. What MPU is that?
NPUL.
Yeah. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Kelly.
See what's ahead for us over the next 5 days. Weather's coming up. A hostile crowd greeted a Grady ambulance crew during an emergency.
Kelly, you there with us?
One person was even armed with a pistol. I need the police here.
We'll move on over to Maxwell.
Hey, can you hear me?
Got you.
Hey, good evening, everyone. My name is Maxwell Rupersberg. I live up in North Atlanta, and I work for the state of Georgia with the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities in supportive housing, which often involves individuals experiencing homelessness, and that ties in to this arena, as well as serving with an organization that does research on criminal justice policy. So glad to be here. Thank you.
Welcome, welcome. Appreciate you coming by. Moore. Mamie Moore.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mamie Moore, a resident by choice of English Avenue, and I'm a member of the English Avenue Neighborhood Association, and I work with Ms. Wallace and as a member of the Public Safety Committee.
What MPU is that, Ms. Moore?
Say that again.
I said, what MPU is that?
L.
Yeah. Welcome.
Thank you.
Is that Steve Carr we got there? Last 48666.
You do. I'm here.
How you do? You want to introduce yourself, Steve?
Say that again, please.
I say, what you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Steve Carr from NPW.
The great Steve Carr. Last 42282. Anybody on last 470-808-2282? We'll keep on rocking. Well, again, I want to welcome you great people to this great meeting and this platform. I've been spending some time today just really looking at how to even make this even more engaging after looking at the work session today and being going to some of these public safety meetings. It becomes a lot difficult to do a lot of engagement during COVID because everything in terms of public comment is kind of pre-recorded, and you know what I mean, when you have a lot of these hot topic issues, you have a number of, they had like over 2 hours of public comment today. So I'm not sure how effective, you know what I mean, that's going to be for certain constituents who have different issues outside of those hot topic issues, but we definitely want to promote this platform to be more engaging, to be able to help support the NPU system here in Atlanta, Georgia. Let's back up. I want to encourage everybody to get involved with APAB and to make sure that you're involved with your NPU. So for those who are involved with the NPU system and you're a delegate, definitely thank you for your continued service. As we know, this is the voice for communities at large here in the city of Atlanta. And for those who aren't, we're here to help support for the needs in the realm of public safety. As you know, or may not know, that APAB pretty much has a committee that mirrors every committee within the city of Atlanta. This is the platform for your voices to be heard and to find and seek resolution to those issues that you may find near to your heart. I want to go into this first piece of the first agenda item. And the first thing that we have on the agenda is about subcommittees and the advisory board. So as we formulated this public safety committee, we kind of did something a little different. And if you go to safeatlanta.org, you'll see a preview of a proposed model that we want to put together for how we're going to conduct and form this public safety committee. Because we have so many dear issues to our heart and a lot of talent pool that's within the community, a lot of those people that serve in these special capacities or have these professions that support us that normally come out of the community. So we created an advisory panel or a board, a group of people that serves in that capacity that helps lend knowledge and expertise in this arena, similar to Mr. Fletcher and Mr. Law, who have previously served in different capacities that are able to give us insight and historical knowledge based on some of the things that's been going on historically. And as we come out and do some of these new innovative things here in the city of Atlanta, we lean on people like that who have served previously to kind of help guide us. It's one of those people who serve in the professional capacity, like Mr. Ruckersberg, who actually works in the capacity on and off the job, supporting our communities. We want to encourage people to get involved on a regular basis because it's the only way that we're going to grow here. We've been doing pretty good in terms of engagement, and we have a lot of work to do and continue as we move throughout the year. So if you go to safeatlanta.org, again, you'll get a chance to see some of the work that we're doing. That is our small marketplace for what we're doing to advertise and try to help keep you further engaged. We also are creating a subcommittee to help support the NPUs. And so we know that a couple of you are NPU public safety representatives. And so we know sometimes in the NPU that it's hard to get support for other constituents, but within your NPU to attend committee meetings. But we're here to help you grow your committee because public safety has tended to be a #1 priority and issue here in the city of Atlanta. And the only way that we're going to make a difference is to involve the constituents in providing resolution to some of the things that's going on. So we encourage that some of you guys recommend and get involved to create this subcommittee. Out of that subcommittee would be a proposed Atlanta Police Advisory Council. There's a model of NPUT who kind of has a similar model where they meet with Zone 1 representatives monthly to provide resolutions for things that happen in the NPU. We want to use that model, and it's one that looks something like the ACRB, where we have multiple NPUs that are supported by a representative who's able to provide direct contact with this body, so that we can take some of those pertinent issues that's coming out of the NPU that may be similar issues going across the city, and so that we can help provide better resolution as we put our heads together and put resolutions, real resolutions that got teeth out of this body and make recommendations to council on how they better support our communities. So we just want to encourage more people to get involved with that and to get involved with this body. We will meet next week as well. So we've been doing great. We've been meeting every Thursday for the last 2 weeks. So we will meet next week as well as we continue to do this work. The next item on here, I wanted to just do a recap of some hot topic issues for the week. If you haven't heard, we have 2 hot topic public safety issues this week, which is one is the reinstatement of the 2 officers that was involved in the AUC issue that happened back last year during the protest. Those 2 officers were reinstated per the Civil Service Board as of Monday. I do believe the mayor came out and made her position known is that she wanted to uphold that peace. The TPU, which is the People Uprising Task Force, which I'm also a part of that, did a press conference today, and you may have seen on Channel 11 and other various outlets, with concerns about the two issues, which is the reinstatement of the two officers and the bounding over of the Rashard Brooks case, in which the newly elected DA recused herself of prosecuting those two cases and moved over to the Attorney General's office. As we move forward, we know those two topics have been one that's been brewing this week, and we want to be proactive, though we're not going to talk about it entirely today. I just want to bring it up as a topic of interest. As we talk about this legislation that was introduced by several council people, in which Councilman Brown spoke to on last week. So as we go into it and we start to reimagine public safety, some of the issues that came to the forefront came out of some cases that are very similar to the ones that we're talking about today, in terms of the reinstatement of the two officers. Before I go any further, did anybody have any questions or comments on anything that we got through so far? Steve.
I'd like to add a couple of things to the agenda. One is the promotion of mediation and alternative dispute resolution.
Gotcha. Mediation. And I did add it, but I'm updating this agenda here as I go. Gotcha. Anything else, Steve?
I'll let you know when I remember them.
Gotcha.
I'm
Anybody
not
else?
as old as Maceo and Ron Lau, but I'm working on it.
Yes, sir. Mr. Lau.
Yeah, Chris, I just wanted to get some clarification. So I'm looking at the flow chart that you referenced.
Yes, sir.
And I'm not quite sure. So you're talking about a public safety subcommittee, which will have representatives from various NPU blocks.
Yes, sir.
I feel like I'm missing something as to what the function of that public safety subcommittee is going to be. I heard you say something about interacting with the APD zones on their advisory councils, but I'm not quite sure what it is you're trying to get at there.
So in various NPUs, especially and it varies, we have issues. So it's and what we found is in a lot of NPUs, we either have one person, chairpersons, so the committee is not necessarily a committee per se, it's a person that represents for public safety, or you either have the chairperson that's acting as the public safety person and or various other positions or functionalities. And because we know that engagement has been an issue, this kind of spun out of a resolution that we did last year around evictions. And when we found that things were actually in place and we actually had funding and everything else, but similarly, the bigger piece was about engagement and how NPUs engage and operate within the community. So what we're doing is creating a model that will help support NPUs from the APAB level. And so the issue is public safety. And so as we have, the goal is to have representation through all of the NPUs for public safety and to actually have active committees of more than one person. So as we advertise or go out here and do more engagement in the communities, and we meet people who either don't know about the NPU system, don't know about APAB, maybe be a new resident to the city of Atlanta, or may have moved from one place to another, this is another place where we're able to catch them and engage them into the system to be a part of it. And with public safety being one of those key places, key items, we must continue to kind of maintain the same level of engagement and kind of build what that looks like, even in APAB. So even as a former person at APAB, you know that it's sometimes hard to get a lot of people to attend. But as to being the body and the official body of the city for engagement, that participation, you know what I mean, is paramount. We really need people to really involve themselves instead of being reactionary. So we're trying to be a little bit more proactive, being a little bit more engaging in terms of conversation, look at best practices and using some of the expertise that may have came out of the community. So with that subcommittee kind of has the purview, kind of similar to the ACRB, when a person is representing multiple NPU assignments, quote unquote. They will help find out the needs of that NPU or within public safety. So even information is transmitted from here, though they may not be in attendance, we're able to still coordinate with the chairs and the NPU person to keep them abreast of what's going on. And the APD council piece came out of, you know, a lot of times people go to the NPU and which public safety is represented, but it's not a whole lot of time to kind of talk about a lot of the issues. So people kind of use the opportunity while they're there, but outside of their piece, and that public safety committee is actually the appropriate time to have and vet and talk about things that's going on. So we're going to help further promote that. And NPUT, who kind of has that advisory council model, they meet with their zone once a month. So that allows for us to have conversation and to do better engagement with police as we start to reimagine what policing looks like in the city of Atlanta, actually knowing what some of the issues are, actually learning policy around policing and some of the SOPs. I even talked to APD about even people and members of this body being able to go through a training to understand from recruit all the way up to the top brass in terms of how does APD operates, the functions of APD, and actually make those recommendations as the body that's been appointed to kind of do this work. So I just want to make sure that we're doing that engagement piece, which is so sacred to the work that we're doing by building better capacity. Mr. Maceo.
Yeah, a couple of things. For one thing, what you're just talking about, they have something called the Atlanta Police Academy, and that's for residents. And then they had the Fire Academy, which is for residents. I'm going through both programs. And sometimes people have to do what they call ride-alongs in order to understand the other side as well. Okay, or I'm not taking up for the other side because people know I don't have. But the bottom line is, you need to understand it better than what's been put out there. Okay. Now, one thing I found out is I served on the Citizen Review Board for 6 years. All right. Now, recently, this week, I think it is, police got acquitted some kind of way by overruled by the Atlanta Civil Service Board. Now, my question is, because this is a board that wasn't there when I was participating. What's the function of that board, and why does that board have overruling classification compared to the ACRB?
Are you speaking in reference to the police officer?
I'm speaking about boards now. I'm talking about the Atlanta Civil Service Board, which led the police off this week, okay? That's overruling the ACRB's, recommendations and stuff like that, okay? Yes, even though ACRB is great in its capacity. I know I served on it.
Yes, sir.
But what I'm saying is the Atlanta Civil Service Board is a higher ranking board, and I want to understand the functions of it. Do you know, or does anybody online know the answer to my question?
Yeah, so the Civil Service Board are coming from appointees for the mayor, and they pretty much hear cases in terms of, it's almost like human relations. And so because those officers were below lieutenant, they were classified through civil service, and that's their right to due process. With civil service, it also comes out of the federal government. And because they're civil servants, they was entitled to have appeal rights after being terminated. So after they was terminated, they filed for appeal and went through the review process. And in that review process, the board gave their findings in terms of due process. And I do have a copy of those. So what I will do is I'll post it on the website after tonight. So by tomorrow, they'll be on the website, and I can also send it to you directly. But it'll show you their findings and what they had. And so even when I heard today in the meeting, they talked about due process, that was something they was entitled to, though the mayor had the ability to make the executive decision. That's where it came from. And so there's a process in doing that, and I'm gonna make sure that that's posted on the website as well, that gives the overview of the Civil Service Board, their roles, their functionalities, their responsibility, and in terms of employment, the recourse that those officers have, you know what I mean, in terms of their appeal rights. So I'll make sure that you get the information so that we don't get caught up on that too long, but that's going to
Good, because you know I will get caught up on this. So thank you for posting it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I make sure that as I post it, so what I try to do is make sure we post information for your review, so that once you review the information, that you can pose any questions or concerns or things from there, so we have a more vetted conversation. And so right now, it's about 6:30. I want to get into this resolution that Councilman Brown introduced last week in length, which is resolution 21-R-3006. And for those who have not seen it, if you scroll to the top of the chat, right up on the safeatlanta.org, there's a link to that resolution for your review, but I will also bring it up on the screen as we go through it. It's about 6 pages long. I want to skim through it, kind of just go through the meat of it, because we know about all the whereas, so you read that kind of on your own. But we'll go to the resolution part into the meat of what this resolution is aiming to do. Share the screen here. Where is it? Not popping up. It's not populating. Hold on 1 second. Okay, there we go. Can you guys see that? So ultimately, this is a resolution by council members Antonio Brown, Joyce Shepard, J.P. Messinghite, Julian Bunn, Andrea Boone, Jennifer I, Andre Dickens, Matt Westmoreland, Nellie Archibald, Carla Smith, and Marcy Overstreet as substituted and amended by Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee, as amended by Community Development, Human Services Committee, requesting that Public Safety and Legal Administration, Community Development Services, and Finance Exec Committees of the Atlanta City Council to conduct a feasibility study and compile comprehensive recommendations regarding the establishment of the creation of the Department of Public Safety and Wellness within the city of Atlanta that will formally coordinate and direct public safety and wellness efforts and for other purposes. And again, you can go through this document. I just want to kind of skim through for time. As you see the whereas pieces, you know, I highlight one where it says, whereas a goal of establishing the Department of Public Safety and Wellness is to address many community concerns for lack of accountability and transparency between the police and public, and increase community safety. Basically, the mayor wants to create a one APD plan to establish a comprehensive plan of recommendations to address public safety within the city of Atlanta. You scroll down, you see a bunch of other whereas streamlining emergency and non-emergency functions under a newly formed Department of Public Safety and Wellness will allow for more efficient and cost-effective way to address issues of major crimes and non-emergency matters. Where citywide there has been an increase in violent crimes in 2020, in a sense that effectively engaging criminal acts must be prioritized, whereas homicides in the city has increased by 62% in 2020, while aggravated assaults by 15%, whereas business owners and visitors have demanded that the city aggressively respond to the rising incidents of violent crimes. Whereas addressing concerns of accountability and transparency in community are at the highest importance, and reimagining public safety and wellness to create tangible solutions to supporting our police, fire, and non-emergency services in the city will address moral and enhanced relationships between first responders and constituents. Scroll on down. Now, therefore, it be resolved by the Council of the City of Atlanta, Georgia, that the Public Safety, Legal Administration, Community Development, Human Services, and Finance and Executive Committees of the City of Atlanta Council are hereby requested to conduct a feasibility study and compile comprehensive recommendations regarding the establishment within the City of Atlanta a newly formed Department of Public Safety and Wellness. And before I continue, I want to take the time to recognize City Council President Moore for joining us. Ms. Moore, you have anything to say?
Mr. Carr told my staff that I needed to join, so I am being obedient. And Happy New Year, everybody. Thank you.
Happy New Year. So yeah, has anybody had time to read this, or is anybody familiar from last week who may have had any questions before we took a stab into this document? Is anybody familiar with it? I know Mr. Steve Carr and Mr. Fletcher was on last week. Well, we'll go ahead and finish reading it then, to the resolve part. So establishing a new Department of Public Safety and Wellness consisting of a newly formed division, offices, and positions to successfully address emergency and non-emergency functions. Establishing a new position of Commissioner for the Department of Public Safety and Wellness to report directly to the Mayor. Establishing a new hybrid division of non-emergency response, community-based safety response under the newly formed Department of Public Safety and Wellness that will be responsible for all non-emergency and community service functions that were previously handled by Atlanta Police, Fire and Rescue, and Constituent Services. This new division will liaise with the Atlanta Police Department to ensure the protection of these first responders when in the field and eliminate the criminalization of poverty. In accordance with the mayor's assessment plan to close and repurpose the Atlanta City Detention Center, support the current Chief of Department of Corrections and personnel redeployment plan, and consider reallocation to newly created positions within the newly formed division of non-emergency response and ensure proper training is available. Review roles and responsibility within the Atlanta Police and Fire Rescue Departments to determine the necessity of a sworn officer performing administrative functions as opposed to a non-sworn member handling these responsibilities. This assessment will increase sworn officers in the field, focus on department core mission addressing emergency services, compile an analysis on the cost of and requirements to establish a non-emergency response number, such as 611 or an alternative number for residents to address non-emergency issues or mental health crises occurring within the city. Evaluate establishing an Office of Communication under the Department of Public Safety and Wellness for city emergency and non-emergency communication to support emergency response call 911, newly established non-emergency response numbers such as 611, and city service calls 311 to streamline efficiencies to bring city emergency and non-emergency communications under one office. It also is going to evaluate independent offices of professional standards from Atlanta Police, Fire, and Rescue Departments to standardize Office of Professional Standards under one office, streamlining administrative functions, including but not limited to office complaints and investigations, allowing for an unbiased and independent review under the new Department of Public Safety and Wellness. This newly formed office would liaise with the newly formed Office of Inspector General and the Atlanta Citizen Review Board and the opportunities to rebuild community trust. Evaluate removing administrative functions of the licensing and permitting from the Atlanta Police Department Special Enforcement Division to newly formed Division of Non-Emergency Response with the function of enforcement remaining with Atlanta Police Department. Evaluate removing code enforcement from under Atlanta Police Department to serve function under the new Division of Non-Emergency Response due to it being a non-emergency function under the Atlanta Police Department that does not require a sworn officer. This legislation also seeks to evaluate constituent services under new Division of Non-Emergency Response, given City Services 311, will be aligned with the newly formed Office of Communication under the newly formed Department of Public Safety and Wellness. Evaluate removing Community Service Division, Community Policing, Airport Section, PAL, and Community Liaise from the Atlanta Police Department to this new division of non-emergency response under the newly formed Department of Public Safety due to the non-emergency and administrative function of this current division. Based on the mayor's desire to address the morale of the City of Atlanta emergency personnel, evaluate establishing programs to support the morale of the members of the newly created Department of Public Safety and Wellness, develop strategy for filling 350 budgeted vacancies within the Atlanta Police Department, both to the support of newly created non-emergency response unit, as well as creating a pipeline program to support recruitment of non-sworn officers, including partnering with nonprofit organizations such as the Atlanta Police Foundation to offer prospective officers incentives like sign-on bonuses and down payment assistance to help purchase homes within the city limits. To immediately establish a working group, including the Chief Judge of Municipal Court, Southern Center of Human Rights, City Solicitor Office, County Solicitor Office, Public Defender's Office, and other necessary organizations deemed appropriate to perform an evaluation and a reassessment of the current cash bail signature bond system that would seek to improve the current structure to account for the circumstances of accused persons who come before the court frequently. The scope of the working group should include, but not limited to, whatever that word is there, getting tongue tied. Recommendations for the non-financial conditions allowing for the accused to comply with orders of the courts and receive care and services through access to programs made available by the Solicitor's Office, Public Defender Office, or policing alternative and diversion initiative for monitoring and support in order to avoid assessment of pretrial penalties until matters are adjudicated. Now, this is one piece of section that we talked about with Councilman Brown last week about APAB having a representative or having some people from the community be a part of this work group. And he wasn't opposed to that. So as we go through this process and when we go through this legislation, we want to take good recommendations so that we can get somebody appointed to be a part of this, to actually help feed information and help bring information back. To evaluate establishing a partnership with Fulton County and Atlanta Public Schools to create a comprehensive action plan and timeline to identify a collaborative pathway to improve outcomes for at-risk youth and deter them from entering the criminal justice system. Evaluate establishing a partnership with Fulton County and Atlanta Public Schools to identify and support required funding needs to extend the Atlanta Public Schools Family Center to support after work hours crisis hotline, including weekend support for mental health, substance abuse, and non-emergency crisis, routing these calls directly to the newly established non-emergency response number. Establish a work group comprised of nonprofits and conflict specialists working in collaboration to evaluate building a network of community conflict resolution centers with a goal of providing mediation and conflict resolution services to Atlanta communities dealing with gang and family violence. That's a lot of stuff, ain't it? Evaluate establishing immediate public and private partnership with the Atlanta Police Foundation to create an action plan to identify funding to build the Center for Social Justice and Public Safety Training Center, a state-of-the-art public safety training facility for all new officers and regular continuing education for current officers. Establishing a timeline to evaluate extending and expanding existing training curriculum for the future incoming officers and executing mandatory retraining of all officers in alignment with the Mayor's Excessive Force Committee recommendations. Establishing salaries, budgets, and qualifications required by newly formed department, divisions, offices, and positions based on industry standards and other adequately sized municipalities, and evaluate the implementation of the Mayor's Use of Force Advisory Council recommendations such as number 20 and number 21, committing to the eliminating performance evaluation system and disciplinary actions that incentivize officers to make unnecessary arrests and committing to incentivizing diversion instead. Be it further resolved, council will convene within 30 days following the approval of this resolution to identify a consulting firm to perform the study in partnership with the Public Safety Legal Administration, Community Development and Human Services, and Finance Executive Committees. A subcommittee shall be formed to include the author of the legislation and the chairs of the Public Safety Legal Administration and Finance Executive Committees to assess the associated costs and next steps for funding, and jointly hold no less than 2 work sessions with community partners and organizations, experts in public safety and the public on establishing a newly formed Department of Public Safety and Wellness. Be it further resolved, the designated consulting firm identified by council and the Public Safety Legal Administration Committee, Community Development and Human Services, and Finance Executive Committee shall submit formal recommendations of its findings to all council members and administration for establishment of new Department of Public Safety and Wellness within 90 days of the engagement of the consulting firms identified pursuant to this resolution. Be it further resolved that this resolution shall be effective immediately upon approval. Be it finally resolved that all resolutions or in part thereof in conflict with this ordinance are hereby waived to the extent of the conflict. And it was passed through all those committees. And there you have what is being proposed as the new Department of Public Safety and Wellness to be formed here in the city of Atlanta. Mr. Lau.
So thanks for reading through all that stuff. I guess where I wanted to go was, this sounds very similar to the kind of feasibility study that was done before the Atlanta Department of Transportation was established. Of course, the specifics are very different because it's public safety related. Do we know, so I have a few questions. Do we know what the budget is for the consulting firm that's going to be hired for this? Because that wasn't mentioned in the legislation. I presume that's going to be identified and talked about, or?
So I think what he said last week is, as they pass this resolution, they're to come back within 30 days with recommendations of that consulting firm and probably any other costs to associate with it. And I do think that was in, so we put it back up for you. It was in the legislation, but I think they're coming back to review within 30 days. So we'll know at that point any recommendations in terms of costs associated to actually have that funded.
So you haven't heard anything, any sort of rough ballpark numbers being mentioned or anything like that?
I haven't.
Okay. And then the other thing I was going to ask is, so given that this legislation really sets out, in terms of the scope of work, a huge number of tasks and so on to be completed, I guess where I wanted to take the discussion perhaps was, so what do you see as the APAB/NPU role when you look at all these tasks to be completed? Do you have a vision for what kind of engagement there could or should be, or at least I know you've identified a couple of tables or working groups you want to seek to have representation on, but beyond that, there's so many pieces here that are being recommended. You know, that's quite a laundry list of things to be done. And I imagine it's going to take at least a year for them to do this study and come back. So in that period of time, do you have any thoughts or ideas as to what you see the scope and involvement of particularly the NPUs and then through APAB being as this goes forward?
Yes, sir. So the slated timeline right now is 6 months. So we know within 30 days, they will come back with this recommendation in terms of identified vendor of choice. And then within the next frame of up to 6 months, you know what I mean, they will come back with these recommendations. I think there have been a number of stepping stones that got us to this point. There have been some studies and some recommendations given by various task force and input from various amounts of people in terms of policy changes and how we police. There have been recommendations in terms of like the 21st century policing model and other services in terms of how we do cash bail and wraparound services. And so that's why this is important on how we engage and not waiting to be reactionary, but it's important that we talk about this. And that's why we spent the bulk from last week to take this meeting to start to roll this out so that we have better discussion and people have understanding of what's going on. And to make those recommendations, being people who have been here and served, like people like yourself, people who have also law enforcement background, and so that people also learn about the caveats between what it is on the citizen side, but as well as the police side in terms of policy, governance, and their roles and how they actually police. So I just see us make sure that we're at least a part of the process at the biggest end of this, and that we're engaging and having ongoing dialogue and recommendations, which sometimes we're here, but we want to make sure that the communities are engaged, because as we see, in my opinion, with this COVID situation, we have policies that come out, right? But if people are not following the policies and people not responding to it, that makes the policy, not as effective. And so we have to make sure that from a community standpoint, that we're being able to enact good policy and that people are understanding so that we actually have real resolution to whatever the issues are that people are having.
So I get all that and I appreciate all that, but so first of all, I think it's really optimistic that that this study is going to be completed in 6 months. That I think is quite optimistic, but let's just go with that. for the time being. I guess my specific question is this. Given that a consulting firm is going to be doing all these things within a 6-month time period, I didn't see anything in the legislation that talked about the consulting firm providing, say, monthly or bi-monthly updates to City Council on their work. I'm sure they'll be providing updates to their internal steering committee. And if APAB or the NPUs don't have a seat on that internal steering committee, then it's going to be very difficult to know what it is that consulting firm is coming back with and how the work is progressing. So I'm trying to get a sense of whether you are thinking about or seeking or asking for a seat at that table, where you have a way of monitoring and maybe contributing to the direction of the work as it proceeds over those 6 months, or whether it's just a matter of waiting until the report comes out at the end of, again, for the sake of discussion, 6 months, and then offering comments at that point, or maybe it's both, I don't know. And you know, in my experience, I don't know that the city is going to be that open to having APAB or NP representation on a management committee that's managing their consultant. That might be, we can always ask, but I don't think that's going to actually happen.
So that's kind of how we got here today. So when we invited Councilman Brown, I got you next, Mr. Fletcher. I'll just give him an update. We got here out of that. So when he went through it and we noticed that it wasn't any community involvement directly from the community, that was one of our first pieces. And I think somebody else raised a question about us being reactionary than being there part of the process to interject or give opinions along the way. So part of us talking through this is about exactly what you're saying. Where do we see, what are some of the things and concerns that we see already, and where do we insert ourselves? Where do we make do we offer a resolution asking council to make the additions? As they said, they will not take away from this resolution, but they will add on to it. So therefore, you know what I mean, us putting forth a resolution for us to vet this out and to talk about what we want to see, which is something similar to what you're saying, so that we are being more proactive and not being reactionary, so that we can have something feasible within 6 months. It's good that they have a short timeline, but we want to make sure that it's thought out and that the right people at the table give input. That's why I keep saying that it's important to have people like yourself, Mr. Fletcher, and people who've been involved at the table to help support this work. So are you interested in being a part of this in some capacity as we make recommendations for it?
So it really comes down to what that's going to involve, but let me ask Council President Moore, when the feasibility study was done for the ATL DOT, was there any, what I'll call citizen involvement in that feasibility study, or was that just purely done by a consulting firm and involved City Council members and members of the executive? Were any members of the public involved with that at all?
Not that I'm aware of, and I don't know how much involvement the council had. I think it was more of an administrative function.
Thank you.
So make sure I put you down with conditions, Mr. Lyon, and we find out what we can do to help move this forward. Mr. Fletcher.
Yeah, Ron, I think at the end of that reading of the legislation, man, it says something about the consultant company getting referred back by the government. Okay, somewhere I heard that right there at the end, but that's not per my conversation, but just to add to that conversation. Okay, but so my conversation is in the legislation. Even though it's already passed, I had a problem with them eliminating PAL. That's our kids' way of playing basketball and baseball and stuff like that, you know. And it's athletic, okay? And then another thing is the fact that I didn't see one iota of the sheriff's department where they're merging with the police department. So you're talking about partnerships here, and there's a hidden partnership that you're not talking about because it's not included in that legislation. And we all know that the sheriff is talking about merging with the police department because of the bookhead money. You know the deal. And then lastly, in that legislation, I didn't hear one iota of mental health. Mental health is on both sides of the fence. They claim citizens had mental health, like they claim Anthony Hill did out there in the kid that got killed by the police, said he was threatened by a naked boy. Then you got mental health on the police side, where they get hired from coming out the war, and they haven't been vetted correctly. So you got mental health on both sides, and everybody's accountable, man. So I'm just saying, mental health needed to be in there some kind of way. And on the West Coast, I know out in San Diego, they got an organization called PERT, P-E-R-T. It's an acronym. And they deal with the mental health aspects and accountability for law enforcement, public safety, that sort of thing. And it's a good sister city to deal with in order to get something done that affects everyone, okay? And that's my comments. Thank you very much.
So I found two of them. So
Felicia, you need to call me.
So I found two of the things, and so just to reread this piece here. Be it further resolved, council will convene within 30 days, and so I need to find the date on that. So within the 30-day mark, days following the approval of this resolution, to identify a consulting firm to perform the study in partnership with the Public Safety Legal Administration, Community Development, Human Services, and Finance Executive Committees. A subcommittee shall be formed to include the authors of the legislation and the chairs of the Public Safety Administration, Finance Exec, to assess the associated costs and the next steps for funding, and jointly hold no less than 2 work sessions with the community partners and organizations, experts in public safety, and the public on establishing a newly formed Department of Public Safety. So we know that in 30 days, we should have found a firm to do this work. And then within that time, we will already put a resolution. So I make sure that we start to draft the resolution by next week so that it'll be in by the next APAB meeting to request for appointment from this body, for APAB, to be represented in this manner so that it'll be documented and, in place with that. In terms of mental health, in terms of PAL, it says evaluate removing community service division, and that's in community policing, airport section, PAL, and community liaison from Atlanta Police Department to the new division of non-emergency response. So basically what they're doing is shifting those non-emergency functions into this newly created, once they create this organization body. So basically what's happening is they're doing a departmental reorganization, ultimately. Okay. And doing it for non-emergency services. So when we talk about how we police, that mental health capacity was one of the #1 pieces that they talked about, which is how police respond who are not equipped to handle or identify those type of situations beyond the training they have already. So we have to, I think that may have came out of the recommendation about reimagining policing, and also in the excessive force recommendations that came out of the task force. That's what some of the recommendations, and I'm going to pull those documents as well to make sure that they're listed on the website so that people also have the opportunity to go read those documents that have been put forth before this and see how well they mesh up. But that work session that they had today also talked about some of the stuff that they talked about how we reimagine policing, cash bail systems, and et cetera. So it's going to be an ongoing piece, and that's why we try to meet here every week, because these issues are becoming so big, and this thing, it'll be an incident happening, and we're distracted. So what we're trying to do is create a focus group within this body to kind of focus and keep up with what's going on, and to also prepare these documents and review these documents and again lend recommendations on their findings so that we can update as a body and put forth a recommendation from this group per a liaison, and also receive information from that liaison from the body that's been established. And I hope to have you a part of that. Are you inclusive of that, Mr. Fletcher? Okay.
I'm good. I want to be included.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'll put you down as well.
Nice to see you, Ron.
Ms. Hall, I see you next, Steve.
Yes, thanks so much. I was just curious about the incorporation of APS and focusing on at-risk youth, particularly right now as children a lot of them are still learning virtually. Sort of what is the, I mean, obviously we hope that this won't be the continuum forever, but sort of what is the plan for that? How do they intend to partner with the schools in that regard? And in that sense, are our Board of Education members involved in this? And will they have some sort of representation?
So I've seen that in here as well. And that'll be letter Q. Evaluate establishing a partnership with Fulton County and Atlanta Public Schools to identify and support required funding needs to extend the Atlanta Public Schools Family Center to support after work hours crisis line, including weekend support for mental health, substance abuse, and non-emergency crisis. Routing these calls directly to the newly established non-emergency response number. So I also will loop in for that item our education committee.
Yeah, and it's actually both P and Q. Both of those speak about a partnership with APS.
Yep. So what I would do is per this meeting is send this over to education to loop them in as well, so they can also start to have conversations around education and what this looks like. Is that an area of interest for you in terms of the education piece?
Not on APAB. I'm sorry.
Gotcha. No. So yeah, but I'm definitely going to loop them into the conversation so that we can start to further expand, so that we can also disseminate this that communication to the NPU education liaison, so they know what's going on with the education as well. Steve,
I have one more.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I have one more question. It's in the same line though. It's just below there are the nonprofits. I would love to have a clearer picture of sort of Atlanta has a lot of nonprofits. So which ones are we working with? Kind of what part are they playing? Working in collaboration sounds lovely. I'm just wondering if that is also a part of the consulting fee, if they're being compensated in some manner, or are they doing that pro bono? And who are they? Is it, the Community Foundation? Is it United Way? Like, are they a large enough facility, or are they something smaller? I'd be curious about that as well.
Sure. Ms. Ramirez.
Hey, what's up, Chris Brown?
Don't your organization support Atlanta Police in terms of engagement or something as a nonprofit?
Is it my business in particular or EBA?
It might have been EBA.
EBA, yes, we're constantly told to, be engaged with NPU meetings and, being in compliance with all around what's going on, especially with task force. So, yeah, and especially the WENT meeting that we had this Tuesday with the West End, we definitely have a member of Atlanta Police Department there. I can't remember his name. I wrote down his number and his email. He gave it to us. And the whole community on the West End, as well as East Atlanta, has his direct number. And he pretty much is on top of everything.
Gotcha. So we also had 2 representatives last week from the APD Urban Planning and Management. That's the group, Mr. Fletcher, that you when you asked the guys to reveal itself. But they're nonprofit they're charged with doing engagement or better engagement with the police department. They're not a part of APD, even though their first acronym says APD Urban Planning and Management. They were said to be a nonprofit, but they had 2 representatives that was here last week, and we're talking to them.
His name is John Miller from Zone 6 APD.
John Miller.
Do you want his number?
Sure.
470-476-9836. And he's very hands-on. The police department is very hands-on.
Got you. So yeah, so I know the Police Foundation has been one of those organizations that they sort of listed out directly as they do a lot of support. But definitely we'll make sure as we keep up in terms of the organizations that's supporting this matter, that we know who's all involved. Gotcha. Steve Carr.
What was his position, John Miller's position?
Ms. Ramirez, she's actually at the drive-through.
Well, whenever you look up.
Yeah, Mr. Fletcher just want to know what was Mr. Miller's position. He might.
Thank you. Yeah, so I didn't get exactly his position. I can definitely ask someone from either Wend or Eva, and I'll get it exactly for you. But I know I saved his email and his number. And he's in all meetings, and I've been in last month's and this month's every meeting. I've had Zoom meetings like all week this week.
Gotcha. So we'll find out, in terms of the engagement of our Officer Miller, and then find out, and I invite him to our next meeting. Any other questions? Oh no, Steve Carr, I'm sorry. Steve, you there?
I have two questions, and I don't expect the answers tonight. However, if they come up, they come up. Number one is, what constitutes a community representative, and only one or more, or what? And my question number two is, I would certainly appreciate having publicized work sessions.
Got you.
And also, West End and East Atlanta are in two different precincts. So this may be coming out of downtown police management.
Got you. Any other questions or comments or anything around this legislation that we need to entertain, put forth for just a suggestion? All right, so with this right here, I'm going to see if we can. I'm gonna go back and deep dive through some of these pieces and questions that you all have already raised, and see what opportunities exist. We're definitely making a resolution out of this committee to have an appointee.
Mr.
Go ahead, Mr. Fletcher.
Did you go through the legislation and add anything, or say you're going to do anything about mental health?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm going to take all the pieces and concerns that were brought up. So I basically wrote all these things down, and also take a chance to review the legislation yourself too as well, and see if you see anything that may suggest it. So let's identify where that can fit in it in terms of mental health, if it's not already cited in this legislation, and we ask for that friendly amendment. And so yeah, so I would take this piece. We're going to try to rope in education and find out if they've already started to schedule any public events or work sessions. Like I told you, there will be a public work session for public safety on February the 18th at 1 p.m. I'm going to also go try to find the recording for today's work session that actually posted on the website as well, so you can actually go back and review the work session that happened on today. There's a lot of work going on. We definitely.
And that's a Zoom?
Yes,
Is
sir.
that a Zoom?
Yeah, it was a Zoom. It was a Zoom.
The 18th.
Oh yes, sir. Yes, sir. So it was on the YouTube, the City Council's YouTube and Facebook page. That's how they broadcast.
Okay.
And then I'll try to go find that video and actually post it to the website as well. So, and what I do is I do an email update out of this meeting, and just kind of send those links out, you know what I mean, via email. So if you in this meeting and you haven't already, if you go to safeatlanta.org and go to contact us and just fill out that little form that'll add you to the distribution list automatically. So if you would definitely include your phone number, because sometimes, you know, some people receive junk mail, spam mail, sometimes prefer method. I try to send out a little quick text, just giving people reminders that about the meetings and so forth. So we promise not to spam you with a bunch of stuff, but I definitely want to make sure that people have the information. And so if there's any, oh, go ahead, Mr. Lau.
So I just wanted to wrap it up by asking you, so our takeaway from this, or I should say our take back to the NPUs, should be informing the NPUs that this is going to be happening and letting them know that APAB is going to seek to have a position on what I'll call the steering committee that's going to be overseeing the work of the consultant. Is that really what?
Yes, sir.
Is that our?
This should take back.
This is to inform our NPUs that this is going to be happening, tell them how it's going to be happening through this feasibility study, hiring the consultant, and then let them know that we're hoping to have a seat at the steering committee table for the 6-month study. Is that what I should take away from this?
Yes, sir. And hopefully that in your NPUs that you have in capacity, not just at your NPU level, but also at your neighborhood level. So it's a great way to engage constituents in the community level, to be a part of the NPU, as well as those individuals being able to send their recommendations and findings and questions, either through a representative or directly through coming to the meeting here, where we try to keep people abreast of what's going on.
Got it.
Because I just got to tell you, because it's a lot, you know what I mean? So, man, it's a lot. So it's just a lot to try to keep up with. It's a lot to try to digest, read through, lend recommendations, lobby support, find out organizations. But I'm willing to do all of this, you know what I mean? Because all of this is important, you know, even with how we provide the outlet. Another big issue that we got is the eviction resolution. And in that eviction resolution, it sought to how we engage and get and do engagement within the EPU and APAB, which would give us some extra dollars to help fund those efforts. What we found is that some people use yard signs, some people use flyers, some people use robocalls. The funding method of those, some was giving things to their council members. Some people use grant funds, some people raise money. So if we was able to take these grants and things that we got out of the NPU and supplement them with money that we may receive from the city to APAB directly or to APAB for the support of the NPUs. We're calling it, by next week meeting, we should have combed out what that looks like, what they look like in terms of a dollar amount and the request. So if you got an extra $2,000 to do engagement for your community, that can go a long way, you know what I mean? Which would help do better engagement, better resources, which would then strengthen what the work that we're trying to do to have better connectivity. So ultimately, you know what I mean, we look to do a lot of work out of this body. I know engagement is not necessarily our job, but that is our job ultimately. As I'm a previous organizer, so I'm always about engagement and getting people involved. And we owe people nothing merely but to give them the information, to make sure that they have it, along with the black and white. So that's what we ultimately are here to do, and that's we promote public safety here in the city of Atlanta. It's people like you that's going to do this work, at least carry the water. So I want to make sure out of this piece, again, I will make sure that I try to send out a communication on that as well. And if you know anybody that does anything around communication and put some of this stuff together, these administrative functions are killing me. So I definitely need some help and support on those administrative functions in terms of trying to draft some of this stuff. But we will meet next week, same time, Thursday, 6 p.m. Those links will go out, share the information. I make sure they go out fairly early so they give people time enough to make arrangements. I want to go to the next item. It's 7:14. I want to try to take the next 5 minutes, just kind of stroll through briefly. I want to make sure I talk about Mr. Carr, who has brought up mediation and his desire to see mediation and dispute resolution in the city of Atlanta. Mr. Carr, I want to allow you the next 2 minutes to speak to what you wanted to see in terms of that mediation and where or how can we best support that, like to provide context to the need and the ask. Mr. Carr.
There's an old phrase that came out of Benjamin Franklin, who said, "An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure." And we need mediation in a variety of places, including being taught at Atlanta public schools and private schools. The NPU process has no mediation process, no appeals process, whether it's rulings of the chair or bylaws interpretation, or even enfranchisement. We have NPUs, particularly NPU-R, that's an absolute mess for over 10 years. So that and alternative dispute mediation, and this is not just a 1 or 2 day thing, this is for the long haul. And the other is, sometime at y'all's convenience, I'd like for Felicia Moore or her campaign people to get back with me, because there's 4 areas in your platform I'd like to see, and I know they're written out someplace, but I'd like to take a look at them, particularly about public safety. And number 2, Leslie Ramirez, if you would call me, I'd appreciate that too.
Most definitely. Can you please give me your number in the chat?
I don't do chats.
Yeah, he's on via phone, so if you can DM me or direct me your information, I'll send it to you. Make sure that you have it, Mr. Ramirez.
Most def.
Okay.
Chris, you can post my number in the chat.
Sure, I will post it right now.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
678 86 86. You got a great number. All these 8s and 6.
I have a comment on Steve's issue after he's finished talking.
Yes, sir. Trying to pull up this last piece because I want to close this out, but I wanted to give you guys a running piece of what we've been working on there. So, as you see, this is kind of our running agenda as we go back. So we have things that we didn't get to today that in terms of topics, public safety, public safety town hall. So as we talk about public safety and bringing the community at large together, what would a public safety town hall look like? Addressing the criminal justice reform, which is kind of what we just went through, because that's part of the reform in terms of reimagining policing. That also included community policing. Drag racing has been one big topic that we've been a part of. The use of tear gas and other methods of de-escalation. The subcommittee, the advisory committee, the Atlanta protests, police reform, use of force, the ACRB, pre-arrest diversion. Pre-arrest diversion will be at the next APAB meeting. They have included new rollouts for zones 4, 5, and 6. They've got a new $1.9 million allocation for mental health services and substance abuse and quality of life issues. 311, 911. For those who didn't know, we've also talked about the wait times for 911 and being put on hold. Some of that comes from because we have over 30 vacant positions in 911. So if you know anybody that needs a job, 911 is hiring. COVID-19, jail closure, APD Zone Advisory Council, communication and community engagement, school police, truancy, social services and juvenile justice, fire rescue, code enforcement, legal administration, includes courts, policy and support programs, evictions and homelessness, and decriminalization updates. From a social services standpoint, we kind of went over some things and I kind of just took it and got it, but in terms of social services around senior services, housing and job training, finance and small business, parent and youth services, social engagement, and entertainment. So as you, if you get the email that comes out, these topics are listed there. These are just topics that we have talked about in one form or another. some of your issues may fit in one of those pockets of buckets, you know what I mean? So feel free as you look through them. It may jog things of your interest that you want to maybe, you know what I mean, use to engage yourself and others. Again, we're here to do this work, to kind of vet out some things, to get recommendations and provide more insight about things that are either known or unknown. We lean it on each other to get it done. It's loud.
I just wanted to jump back to what Steve was talking about with respect to mediation. The city does have, through the Office of Planning, or whatever they call themselves these days, there is a mediation service that's available. It's not clear to me, like they don't have an actual form that you submit to describe what it is you want the mediation about. It's not clear to me right now how you connect to it, but you know, the NPU contact person there, Leah LaRue, is, I think, the one who runs provides the service, but it is something that's available to NPUs.
And just to add, and I see you, Steve. Also, just to add to that, while we're reimagining all this reorg stuff, as we look at the Office of the Public Defender and some of these other non-emergency services that will become essential to public safety and criminal justice reform, there may be something that we can lump in to streamline the process for dispute resolution and services to communities and just for things that happen in the community. If there's like mediation is a great thing, you know what I mean? Because if you have a problem in terms of the referral service, even with APD, if they're on with that, some civil claims, you know what I mean? When officers go out, there's a dispute that may arise out of a civil dispute that may turn into something that may become more aggressive in terms of something that may be criminal in its intent. That service will also arm officers with a different alternative that could also be aligned with this non-emergency department. So that's something to look at as we move this forward. Steve, I see Mr. Fletcher as well. Go ahead, Steve.
Leah LaRue has announced, and she's the assistant director out of the Office of Planning, and she is the main interface with the NPU. She set up the NPU University, but to my knowledge, she has never announced that there's any kind of mediation process. She did say that she took off a week and 40 hours and studied mediation, and she is a certified mediator. But also we have two other people, including Kiona Jones, the past chair of NPUJ, and Michael Woodard, who was APAB selection to be on the Atlanta Citizens Review Board, who are certified mediators. And I have never heard of any kind of reach out from the city to these people or anything that Leah LaRue has said. I would certainly encourage it. However, to my knowledge, it hasn't happened, and I appreciate Ron bringing it to my attention because I had no idea, and I go to any and all meetings.
Well, we'll make sure we bring it up in APAB, and I see Laura also has said that they offer courses in something like this. So there's maybe something that we can see through APAB or NPU so that we can look at expanding, you know what I mean, what purview that we may, or opportunities that may exist within APAB and NPU. So as we talk about engagement, that is something that I will add to that list for you, Steve Carr. And
thank you. I also want to extend this to the communities as well.
Yes, sir. So the NPU is the community at large. Ultimately, APAB is the community at large. So definitely, as we talk about looking at how to, and that may be, that may be an essential piece on how we include APAB and the NPUs as a way to do dispute resolution on how we engage at the community level as a entry point, as one of many entry points for dispute resolution.
I would also assume that there are mediation and alternative dispute resolution programs available in other jurisdictions, other states. And rather than us reinventing the wheel, somebody who is knowledgeable about this mediation, maybe I can call Kiona and ask her, or Michael, or Leah, and see what other programs are set up in other places.
So if you would, Steve, it sounds like you're going to be the great person to help, since this was your idea, to help also explore other opportunities that may not lie in other jurisdictions, so that we can have the research to go support what we want to see happen. You know, I'm a firm believer of not just arguing what we want to see, but actually having things to help support that. So if you would be gracious to help lead that and help find resources in other jurisdictions and municipalities that may have a program, and also using those people who have that expertise to give recommendations, that would be great.
I mentioned Kiona Jones's name. She's also the chair of APAB's Education Committee.
Yep, and I'm very familiar, and we have something coming from here to Kiona, so I will make sure I include that mediation piece on with that for you. You definitely don't hesitate to reach out to her. She is a part of, she's a delegate for APAB, so.
Thank you.
Mr. Fletcher.
Yeah, I just want to add on to Steve's situation and the fact that the Citizens Review Board has mediation. I'm the one who helped get it to our particular board when I was on the board. And they service people real finely. Another thing is the fact that since I'm still nationally certified with police oversight, I do have different slides and different presentations on different subjects, such as mediation. And I can share that if people are willing to take what I give. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Yeah, so as we wrap this up, man, I think it was a great meeting. I think we got through this very well with some great recommendations. I want to look at for next week, looking at in terms of the mediation piece and stuff, also looking at in the jurisdictions. Steve, I'm also trying to reach out to ACLU or some other civic organizations that may have overview of resources that may help aid our efforts. We have to lean on our partners that's in the civic world to help us do this work. And so I think it's been good, man. You know, Kiana will have that information, and I will send out an email just trying to give some helpful resources and outline, you know, some of the things that we talked about, and also send out this document, and as well as a couple of the documents that went out. But if you go to the website, there's a section there that has a lot of documents in terms of legislation that are hot topic items, you know what I mean, that I try to catch and put on here for downloading. I think the other one that we had in there was the one from Michael Bunn. I forget the name of it. The one that's going to do the review for the restaurants and the people with liquor license, establishing that piece. So I hadn't gotten to that piece entirely. So there may be one that we look at for next week as well as we move this agenda forward and keep these topics going. So I just want to thank everybody for coming out. Again, don't forget to go to the website, go for the contact us, and also put your information in the chat. You know what I mean? What I try to do, you know, I don't get a chance to look at the chat a lot while scrolling and conducting the meeting, but I do take time to go back and export the chat to look at, you know what I mean, conversations, comments, suggestions, and links and things that people have provided within the chat. So if you got, if you would put your name, phone number, email, NPU, what have you, or any other comments or concerns in the chat, I will do that. But also the contact us has a little bit more outline piece for you to be able to put your concerns in. Feel free to contact me directly. Matter of fact, let me drop my phone number directly in the chat. It's there. And feel free to reach out anytime, man. Like, I really appreciate you guys coming in. And if we don't have any other questions or anything, you know what I mean, we are adjourned the next week. Anybody? Speak now, feel and hold your peace. Y'all be safe. Thank you. Mr. Lau, I'm sorry. Mr. Lau, I see your hand raised. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. So you just mentioned the part of the reason I actually joined the meeting tonight. So, and it has more to do not with the audit of the restaurant function, but the initiative to now get the ATAG 3 going. So just by way of background, I actually participated in ATAG 1, and I didn't learn my lesson then. I participated in ATAG 2. I ended up actually chairing most of ATAG 2. Councilmember Bond is the one who introduced the legislation for ATAG 2. It was Councilmember Ann Favre who created ATAG 1. And I see Councilmember Bond has now moved legislation forward to create ATAG 3. So I don't want to drag this out anymore because it's been a long meeting, but I did end up, as I said, chairing ATAG 2 because Councilmember Bond was rarely present for the meetings. And I had been elected as vice chair, so I ended up chairing all the meetings. It went for a long time. It was about 18 months that we met for. And I worked with the other representatives from the NPU blocks that were appointed, and Rashid was the APAB appointee at the time. So I don't know what the process is for you guys appointing somebody. APAB still has an appointment on that committee. I'd be happy to talk to anyone about that if they're interested. I still have my 3-inch thick binder of all the notes from the meetings and the spreadsheet of recommendations. There were about 70 something recommendations that ATAG 2 came up with, and only one recommendation from that set of 77 has ever been moved forward in terms of actual legislation. And it didn't actually get turned into, the legislation that was put forward wasn't actually truly a match to the recommendation that had been made. So I've been around that racetrack a couple of times, and would be happy to share my lessons learned from those experiences. And I have a lot of ideas on how to improve, having been through it twice now, a lot of ideas on how to improve the process this time around so that it can actually end up helping our neighborhoods and our NPUs. So I just want to put that out there.
I think that's great. Make sure I have your number in the chat and have your information. As I want to make sure that we put, like, even as they create this resolution and put it forward, that we have more dialogue around it before they actually go implement it, so that we can take the information that you said. Out of 70 recommendations, you're going to put forth one. There may be an opportunity that's contained in 2, that the one that came out of 2 still valid today. You know what I mean? So the creation of 3, you know what I mean, and it being necessary, I think that's going to be quite helpful. So I definitely look to follow up with you on that, and then we find out if we can get an appointment in that group. Steve.
Thank you. Earlier, Maceo mentioned the Citizens Police Academy and the Citizens Fire Academy. I've been to both of them years ago, and I was impressed, and I would certainly encourage anybody at this meeting this evening that if they have a chance, sign up and go.
Yeah, we're gonna work. So what I'm gonna try to do is take from all the people who's attended. The police, I know it's the Explorer program. Again, we definitely, as we go talk about reimagining policing, and those people who are going to be involved, I encourage those people to, myself and anybody else, even if you're already being, because again, it's about supporting the community and understanding what's going on. So I definitely agree with you, Steve. And I want to try to see if we can just get a whole big initiative around the Explorer program and offering those dates. I know COVID is here, so maybe there may be a virtual version that we can go through and start to develop in the interim. So that's something that we can explore. Because SOPs, what I found last year during a lot of protests, we were wanting things or saying things that had already happened, whether it's training or policy changes that we just didn't know about. We have to have more educated people on the ground, even doing this work, so that we kind of start to mediate some of the stuff that's going on. among ourselves, you know what I mean, so that we put some of our best issues forward and not, you know what I mean, like I said again, I look at the city council meetings and they're just bombarded with a lot of stuff and they're valid, right? Of the hot topic issues, but 2 hours, I think they made me fall on some deaf ears, you know what I mean, but I couldn't bear it no more after about an hour of trying to listen to public comments. So yeah, that's my piece and that's my take, but I definitely hear your sentiments and let's move it forward. So next week, Thursday, 6 p.m., share with a neighbor, friend, colleague. We'll be here, bring any ideas. Feel free to hit me up in between time, in the meantime. And until next week, I'll see you guys later. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.